Hello and welcome to Turn of Speed. I'm Rachna Tyagi. Today we are at Mahindra India Design Studio at Kandivali in Mumbai. And we have with us a very special guest, Pratap Bose, Chief Design and Creative Officer at Mahindra Mahindra Ltd. Pratap Bose, a luminary who, having worked with some of the world's leading OEMs, has a formidable track record that is rooted in decades of exemplary automotive artistry. He possesses an extraordinary ability to peer into the future of mobility, seamlessly blending timeless tradition with avant-garde aesthetics. Since his arrival at Mahindra, he has infused the marquee with youthful vigor and revitalized its product portfolio with a sense of modernity and elegance. His distinctive style and creative flair have undoubtedly elevated the brand's vision for the future. At the heart of his design philosophy lies sustainability and forward-thinking craftsmanship, guiding every project he undertakes. Join us as we delve into the mind of a visionary whose creative ingenuity continues to shape the future of automotive excellence on a global stage. So congratulations on this brand new studio. I'd really like to start off by asking you about MIDS and MADE. How are the two different? How are they alike? What is the work that happens here?
So thanks Rachna for coming and visiting us. Yes, this is our new MIDS studio in Mumbai. We've doubled the footprint. As you know, there was a studio here already, established in 2015 as a dedicated studio within Mahindra. Of course, design has existed longer than that, but it was part of some other facilities and buildings. And then in 2015, the first part of this studio was built. In 10 years, we've come a long way as a company. And of course, our plans are such that we need to have a very, very strong design capability for future expansion, growth, all of that. So it was felt that not only do we need a larger studio here, presence here in Mumbai, in Kandivali, but also what we do in the studio. Because Rachna, as you know, automotive design or the business of design has changed completely in the last 10 years. And now there are many new areas we get involved in. So for example, HMI, UI, UX design is one of them. Color, materials, finish, perceived quality or design quality is another one.
Right.
Because the customer has also changed. The sort of expectations that the customer has from a product goes way beyond the look and feel of the product. It's actually the experience of owning a product that it's moved to, rather than just ownership. So it's experience, and for that we felt we needed to expand design. In August 22, if you remember, we inaugurated MADE, which is in Banbury in Oxfordshire in England. And here we are in MIDS expanded. Like I said, double the footprint, many more people, of course, creative staff. And we do handle a wider range of things. So for example, in MADE, we did some of the B products that you saw.
Right.
So the B6 is directly from MADE, and MIDS does two sorts of projects. One is what we call range maintenance. That means products which are already in the market. We keep its sort of life and life management, product life management. So facelifts, upgrades, all of that. And then they do all new programs as well. So the XEV9E is one of them, the Thar Rocks, the 3XO, Scorpio N, and many products that you'll see. We also do farm here, so things like tractors, mainly for both the Mahindra and the Swaraj brand. And finally, we also have LMM, last mile mobility, that we do from here, electric three-wheelers, and hopefully you will see something in those areas as well.
Right.
And beyond that, we have our research facility in Chennai, MRV. We also have a software development center in Coimbatore. Most of our suppliers are based here in India. So MIDS is actually the nerve center for coordinating everything that we do from design into the rest of the company and beyond.
Right. Yeah. I have a 5-axis milling machine here,
Yes.
and that's like your star product. Do tell us a little bit about it.
So, when you have a certain speed that you have to achieve without losing quality in design, as you know, we have shrunk our design and development time from almost 5 years, 5.5 years, 60, 70 months used to be the industry standard. We have crunched that to 36 months now, and the aim is to go even faster to about 30, 28 months for all new products. Now for this you need to have a combination of human skill and of course tools, electronic tools or machines or whatever they may be. Now we have a very important phase, Rachna, as you know, called the clay modeling phase. That's where we translate our 2D sketches into a full-size 3D model. Now if that was done manually, just to give you an example, it would take 8 to 10 weeks. We can do now with our 5-axis milling machine, we're able to crunch that time into even less than a week now. Also, if you have to make any changes, they can be done a lot faster. So there were some companies who got rid of clay modeling completely, but here we are. We've invested actually a huge amount of money and resource in strengthening clay modeling because we think it's such a fundamental design tool. And that's what we've enhanced here. We have the similar machine at MADE, so both the studios are equipped to do this complete end-to-end design delivery. So efficiency, speed, quality, all of that really comes in a big way with this ability now.
How important clay modeling is, and I believe you also get the clay from another country. It's imported.
Yes. So clay modeling is an activity which started in the 50s in America. GM actually pioneered clay modeling in automotive. Earlier there used to be wood modeling, so you would make the entire car in wood.
Wow.
Before manufacturing.
Sure.
But then you could not make changes. In a wood model, it's so hard, so fixed.
Right.
So they needed something that could be changed, that could be tuned, that could be manipulated, and this clay was invented in the 50s.
Right.
It's very different to the clay that we are used to for pottery or the plasticine you play as children, but it's still similar in the sense that it's soft enough to put onto a full-size model, but it's hard enough to get all the details that you need. But you need some very skilled hand modelers.
Right.
Now that's the key point. The touch of the hand is what brings in emotion to the shape, to an automobile. We are selling products of emotion that people buy with a lot of not only a functional requirement, but they have a aspirational need as well.
Right.
So for us, it's very important that the products we create at Mahindra have an emotional appeal, and we've seen that you can't go straight from a CAD tube to a production car without going through this intermediate phase where you really touch and feel the model. So every car that we produce is a result of that human intervention, and the way the highlights travel over the car, the quality, the fit and finish, all of that is a actual direct outcome from how much human intervention goes into it. So yes, while we are using the state-of-the-art tools, it's not the tools that design the car. It is still the person behind those tools or with those tools. So the tools are common, as you know. Every OEM in the world will have exactly the same design tools.
Right.
But I think where one differentiates from the other is the quality of the people that use those tools.
Right.
You use a keyboard or a laptop, and so do I. But what you are able to write as opposed to what I'm able to write is very different. So
you have a beautiful paint booth here.
Yeah.
Tell us about how important is the role of color on a car, and because it can be a hit or a miss. And does Pratap Bose lose sleep over the color of a car going wrong? Maybe. Maybe it could have some catastrophic results. Does that ever happen in the design phase?
Yeah, so Rachna, we have a design process, and in the design process, color, materials and finishes, what we call CMF, is a very central part of that process, because it gives the character of that vehicle is enhanced by the colors and materials, right? So if I'm just to give you a very simple example, if I want to do a car that's sporty and it wants to talk about being performance oriented, great sort of off the line takeoff and acceleration, then you would kind of show the car in those colors, especially in communication, advertising and all our media work. If you want to show a car to be really very elegant, yet powerful, then you would use another palette. So it all depends on what message you have with that product. And therefore, in our process, we paint we develop them first, we design and develop the colors, and then we paint multiple options for the management and especially the marketing team to take a look. Because they have a very good pulse of what's selling, what's out there, what's unique. So we do have that process. Also, don't forget, we offer a range of colors, right? So in any model that you see, you'll have 6, 7, 8 colors. So if you don't like a particular color, there's always another color in that range to choose. So it's not usually catastrophic at that level. But yes, in the communication level, that means when the world first sees the car in 2D or on your phone or social media, before it even hits the showroom, that's where it can go terribly wrong. So you have to be very careful what your communication color is.
Right.
Does it really express the personality of that vehicle?
Right.
Does the vehicle look good in that? Now, added to that is photography. So I get now very closely involved in how the car is shot.
Sure.
The angles, the ambience, and the background, all of that. Because you can design a car in a certain way, and then if a completely different team portrays that car in another way, then you've lost that impact.
Right.
So this is how design also has started to work with other non-traditionally, let's say, design areas. So it's color, it's materials, but it's also how that same product is portrayed in the outside world.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the EVs which you've just designed. It's kind of set the whole EV market on fire. The B6 and the XEV9e. Two different cars for two very different people. How easy or difficult was it because you showcased them on the same day? What were the challenges in designing these two distinct cars?
So first of all, I just wanted to clarify, I don't design anything. It's actually the team who does all the work. If anything, I can give some sort of direction which is aligned to the brand, which is aligned to some business objectives, etc. But the true skill and talent of the team comes through in the design that you see. Now, I'll just sort of dial back one step before that. Rachna, when you want to increase your volumes, there's 3 customer pools. One is the ones who are already Mahindra customers, so they want to buy a new car from you. The other is a non-Mahindra customer that you want to bring into the Mahindra world. And the third is someone who has no car at all and wants to make his or her first purchase. So there are 3 distinct categories of customers that you need to therefore engage with if you want to grow your volume. If you want to keep a static volume, you just sort of keep that first pool happy and hope that it'll be okay. But if you want to grow, as we have already shown our growth and how we want to grow in the future, you need to tap into these 3 pools, right? Now, therefore, if you look at the 2 BEVs that we've launched, one is in this XUV, XEV family, and one is a completely new sub-brand called B, right? Why did we do that? One was the people who are already with us in the XUV world if they want an electric vehicle, they have something that they can immediately relate to.
Right.
And the other, the BE, is for people who've never entered a Mahindra showroom before. We've never managed to bring them in for whatever reason,
Sure.
right? So that's the reason why two products at the same time, because you want to, of course, maximize your volume, because we get a lot of let's say leverage on volumes when you can sell more, right, at the architecture level. So Inglo is the common architecture for both of them.
Right.
That only makes sense when you have a certain minimum critical volume, right, for cost, for many related benefits that an architecture or a platform has. So we thought, one is, yes, we'll go directly and appeal to our Mahindra pool for that brand. And the other will be a completely new customer who's never looked at us.
Right.
And suddenly says, wow, what's that?
Yeah.
So, to appeal to these two sets initially, one was, those who are with us already, they get a great new product in the XEV. And the other ones who never looked at us as a brand, are totally stunned and say, yeah, we're going to either leave what we have or add on the B6 to the garage. And we've had people who, Rachna, believe me, they own supercars. They own the Lamborghinis and Ferraris of the world, and they have gone and bought the B6. Or we've had people who have, the traditional European, let's say, premium cars. They've gone and bought the XEV 9e. And we've had a lot of learning from that, by the way.
One of the things that we really saw was your use of eco-friendly materials. A lot of sustainability going on. How do you make these eco-friendly materials look really upmarket, look really premium on your cars which you've designed, which are obviously fabulous?
Yeah, that's a very good question actually, because no one that I know of actually pays only for eco-friendliness. There has to be something inherently attractive about that material, and then it happens to be eco-friendly. Yes, it's an added on sort of advantage that a user gets, but no one, at least yet, pays a premium for it at the moment. Now, when we wanted to start introducing this, we also found that the supply system or the tier 1 supply system in India wasn't developing some of these materials. It wasn't part of the playbook at all. It wasn't part of the choices we could make. But we, being Mahindra and launching these two BEVs, we said we need to make that change. So even if it's in a small way, we will do it. So what did we do, Rachna? We, in the plastics on the interior of the car, for example, there's no paint. On most of the parts, there's no paint, so that when you have to shred that door trim or that particular part in the future, it is still a virgin material. But we gave it a kind of texture and grain that makes it really look premium, and you feel that this is some other material. The same with our fabric.
Yeah.
So the fabric has 50% PET bottles recycled. There was no one making that in India actually. So we, with our suppliers, brought that technology to India for the first time. And today it's 50%, but my aim is to keep raising that percentage of PET,
Sure.
that you find in bottles in that fabric. But again, it has to look a certain way, so the sage green we developed is very nice as a grey fabric as well. We do some embossing on it. You'll see all this as we go along. But you cannot, let's say, lose the premium touch, feel, look just because something happens to be eco-friendly. So that balance is important, but we work very, very closely with the supply chain to do that. And like I said, in the fabric case, we have brought them to India for the first time. I also, and they said, should we be exclusive to Mahindra? I said, no, you should offer this to other manufacturers as well, because it needs to have a critical volume nationally, for it to really go over that tipping point.
Right.
And I'm inviting and hoping that other manufacturers also pick up that same material. It's absolutely fine.
Great. How does Pratap Bose balance aesthetic appeal and aerodynamic engineering?
Wow, that's a very good question. We always have that tussle. So, especially in BEVs, because of the range issue, aerodynamics is very, very important. Now, if you see the silhouette of the 9E, it's very slippery. That's what we call it. Least resistance to wind. I mean, that's what aerodynamics eventually is. It boils down to a figure called drag coefficient or coefficient of drag, and that means that it gets through the wind with lesser resistance than someone or something that has a higher coefficient. It's as simple as that. Now on the XEV, the silhouette does that. It's very, very swoopy. You will see that coupe-like shape, smooth surfaces, the wheel wells are well protected. In the B6, we've got air curtains in the front, in the bumper, part of the aesthetic. So it's not something it's a add-on, that someone realizes. So we get our aero engineers and simulation engineers from MRV to work with us really early in the process. So it's not like, we've designed the car, we're ready to go, and then someone finds out that the drag coefficient is too high. And then you have to make a lot of changes, you lose time, money, all of it. So we make sure it's integrated in the system or in the design very early on. The B6, a lot of people have talked about the floating, aero device on the hood. That is one of these examples, and we made it into a feature. There's 2 spoilers at the back as well. So we try and build in the aero aids, we call them aerodynamic aids, in a way that it looks natural to the design and not an afterthought. It's like you are fully ready to go out, you've done your makeup and all of that, and then suddenly someone says, oh, I need to now, put something on you. That never works. So you have to always plan it as a part of your process. And that's what we do now. Again, Rachna, the digital design really helps with that, because we're able to share a digital model of the car much earlier with the aero engineers than waiting for a physical one to put into a wind tunnel. We still do that, but the digital simulation that you can do at MRV and other places helps us get the feedback early. So the earlier the change, the faster and the lower the impact to time and cost. The later a change in automotive, that's the truth. The later you change something, it costs you more in terms of money and time. And of course, you get a delay in introducing the product in the market, which itself, is a lost opportunity cost. So, yeah.
How do you and your team deal with rapidly changing technology? How do you upskill constantly? Because it's the need
in terms of design?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, we are seeing some tools of design really have got democratized. That means students are able to use those tools in design college itself. In our case, we had to actually graduate before you had access to those digital tools, especially because they used to be prohibitively expensive. I mean, I'm talking in hundreds of crores if you had to set up a full system. Today you can get online software for free. So something called Blender, for example, the design students are using from college. There's something called Unreal Engine, which is also something they can download. So we see students today at graduation are much better equipped with digital tools than we ever were. And then the transition they make into the company is easier in that sense, because they continue using those tools. And also, digital design software companies like, Dassault or Alias, from Autodesk, they are constantly innovating, as you know. And we send up people to some of their, conventions, workshops. We also tell them sometimes what to do, in which direction should their software go. So, Ajay, who's the head of this studio, he sits on their advisory panel. To try and reduce this gap between digital, physical, upskilling, all of that, because it really is rapid. We have a set of tools we've chosen. We don't go literally after everything, Rachna, because otherwise you can't keep up. But what we've said is we'll choose a few, but we'll get really good at that. And that's where we are focusing. So in the area of visualization, for example, we are slowly starting to introduce some AI tools. Because they do the rendering so fast. So, whatever we feel is appropriate and beneficial to the outcome is what we are after, not just, tools for the sake of it.
Right.
Yeah.
How does car design adapt when it comes to adapting to new advancements in battery tech, electronics, and other components?
Yeah. One of the areas, especially when you go EV, one of the areas is that, for 120 years, the motive force in automotive has been in the front.
Yes.
Right? It replaced the horse and you brought an engine. And that didn't change for 120 years. Now the motive force is actually under you, below you, in the skateboard,
yeah.
and your motor is either in the front or in the rear or both. So that has fundamentally changed how you think of the layout of a EV. Added to that was what I said about aerodynamics. So these are things that are affecting the shape and how you approach the design in the first place. See, earlier you could have horsepower to pull you through. Now you need other things, right? In terms of infotainment, what we call infotainment, HMI, huge change, because the consumer electronics world, especially in mobile phones, that changes every 3 or 4 months. Or you'll see an update of your phone while you're sleeping, happening twice a year, thrice a year, and then the phone model itself will change. So the consumer electronics world is faster than the automotive world in any case. So you have to sometimes try and catch up with that, because that's the expectation of the customer. Right. We have much more information to display, so that's why screens are getting bigger or more complex. And there is where, through the HMI design, we're trying to simplify the process. We are also talking about bringing physical controls back, at least some of them.
Right.
Because I think the world went completely digital, and then a phone is something you sit and operate, but a car is something you're driving, you're looking ahead. So you can't literally say, oh, iPhone has no button, so car should have no button. No, it's when you're going at 100 kilometers an hour on a highway, and you take your eyes off the road for a second, you've gone 50 meters, and you can have an accident. You can, lots of things can happen. So I think this balance also we are trying to figure out, and that affects, like you said, what the design of an interior will look like,
Sure.
what the design of the exterior will look like. Lighting, another area where the LED lighting technology has completely fundamentally changed the face of the car, right? The units are tiny now. Earlier you had the big headlights, and then you had an indicator, then you had a fog lamp. Now everything's integrated into one. I mean, that component exists. So that can fundamentally change the face of a car. And it will. You've seen in the B6, for example, no one knows where the headlights are.
Yeah.
They always ask me where the headlights gone. So these are the things that technology we use to then make some fundamental changes in either the interior or the exterior. But always, Rachna, we are mindful that we shouldn't use technology just because it's there. It has to have some end user benefit. That is very important. So when I say one single component, that's an amazing integrated lamp that you don't have to then worry about, oh, my indicator broke, or my fog lamp has broken, I have to change just that. It brings a lot of benefit as well.
True.
And the last I would say in terms of technology is that we also look ahead of what's happening in the non-automotive world. What's really going on in the architecture world, in fashion. A lot of people there was a phase where there were wearable LEDs. We've now integrated LEDs into fabrics, for example, in the interiors of cars. So other areas are also important to look at,
Sure.
But I always say the human technology is the ultimate.
How do you deal with designing areas around the battery pack? Because so much is associated with safety. Safety is sacrosanct. What is different, or should I say crucial or vital, to bear in mind while designing, especially around this area?
So we are very lucky that we've got a phenomenal team in MRV who designs the pack. They've designed the pack to be used, abused, and beyond, right? Because they've submerged it in a pool. They've put fire through it. They've shot an arrow. They've shot a bullet. The technology that they chose itself, LFP. How to contain thermal incidents. So the pack we get from MRV, I mean, the pack that MRV has designed is kind of a standalone. It doesn't need anything else for us to do in that.
Really? I mean, areas around it, like anything that
No,
you
so
need
for example,
to have a special focus on?
No, so in the Inglo, the pack becomes part of the structure. So it's part of the crash structure. It's part of all of that.
Okay.
So what it does is it becomes integral to the monocoque.
Okay.
But this is something that the engineering team has actually engineered, so that we don't have to really think or worry about it.
Okay.
In a crash, it's not like it's going to, emerge from the floor or intrude into the cabin in any way. Yes, there could be, in some types of cars, there could be a ground clearance issue, but we are SUVs, as you know, ground clearance for us, the higher the better in a way. It keeps also the center of gravity quite low.
Right.
So we are able to do slightly taller vehicles. But apart from that, I think at the pack integration level, we don't face any real issues, or nor do we have to really change anything. Of course, there's a wheelbase because the pack sits between the wheels. So when we engineered the Inglo architecture, it was very clear that Velu and team wanted, that 79-80 kilowatt hour pack because it would give us a certain range, and that defined, let's say, the wheelbase of the vehicle for sure. So at that level, yes, there is a direct impact, but I don't think we have to do anything really special beyond that.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the challenges in designing autonomous vehicles, especially because, you have to make them appealing, and also, you have to have a more human-centered approach, especially because at this point in time when they are being tested in California especially, one usually sees, them only being taken from point A to point B. I mean, that's like really drab. How would a designer like you want to make it more appealing to?
So autonomous vehicles is not something we have currently designed or
your
are
travels
designing.
abroad.
Yeah. What I can say is that autonomous vehicles, the biggest problem is not the vehicle itself. It's everything around it. It's everything outside the vehicle, because that has to integrate into a non-autonomous world, right? So if you can imagine a world of analog world of 30 years ago, and you have to integrate this into that world, the problem won't be with this, it would be with the world you're trying to integrate into.
Right.
So autonomy really works in a homogeneous autonomous situation, right? Everything else is connected and autonomous. Right. But if you've got a person who drives badly, comes and smashes into the autonomous car, you will still have an accident. So that for me is the fundamental issue. It's the non-autonomous bits that surround autonomy.
Okay.
Having said that, when you get into an autonomous vehicle, because you don't see anybody, there could be a trust issue between you and that vehicle. See, today, many monorails and mass transit systems already don't have a driver. But still people wonder, how is this going to work? I mean, actually something like a metro or a subway technically doesn't need a driver or a human being at all. It can totally be autonomous. But I think seeing a person driving something brings a sense of assurance. Even a pilot is not flying the plane 80% of the time, right? He or she just takes off and in some cases lands. The middle bit is fully autopilot. Many people sitting in the back don't know that. But they see a pilot going into the, with the 4 stripes, grey hair, pilot, captain. So I think visually seeing someone operate something has helps in trust. And that's, I think, one of the areas that the autonomous world will need to work. How do you fully trust a machine? I think there's the only issue. And I think if you can do that through design, which people have attempted and are attempting, there's voice, there's, you can speak to a little AI assistant. There's many of those things that they are already trying.
Right.
But for me, the fundamental difference is when you have a non-homogeneous world of autonomy and let's say, non-autonomy, that's where the integration is harder.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about new trends that you've seen in terms of exteriors, interiors, and infotainment. It's already mid-2025 right now. Anything that's excited you and you probably are thinking about bringing it onto Mahindra vehicles?
I think, by and large, cars in terms of proportion are universally much better now. You almost don't see, cars with the wheels too small or some things too long or some things too big. I think the car world or the automotive design world in terms of proportions of cars has really got very, very good. And this is universal. I mean, right across from the US to the Far East and everything in between. China is amazing already in that area. So architecturally and car design in terms of proportion, I think we are there. On some of the trends, some people are going hyper, let's say, electronic. Everything is digital, and other companies are choosing to have a hybrid approach. And me personally, and we think at Mahindra, somewhere in that hybrid is a good place to be.
Okay.
Don't go too far in either sort of direction. A good blend between physical and digital is important. You want to change the AC blower speed. Why should you go through 3 layers of digital on the screen? You want to change the volume. It's just easier to turn a knob. A physical knob. Why again do you have to touch screens, etc.? So that's, I think, where we want to be and want to get to, this real happy mid ground between digital and physical.
Right.
I've seen some cars, there is not a single function left which is physical, not one. Even the windows up and down, you still have to go into the screen, which I think for me is a step too far.
Talking about proportions, I mean, as a designer, do you feel that proportions of cars differ from country to country based on the average height of people and also based on the roads? And do you feel that you have to take that into account when you design cars?
So, there are some specific products for specific markets,
right,
which drive a certain proportion.
Okay.
There are global products which have another, let's say, more uniform, universal proportion. So I'll give you an example. The sub 4 meter category doesn't exist anywhere in the world.
True.
Now we have, in that sub 4 meter, we have hatchbacks, we have sedans, we have SUVs.
True.
We have all typologies of products within that. So that actually forces a certain proportion. If I go to Japan, there's a K car, which is 3395, even more severe length. Even there, they have all types of vehicles in that 3395 length. What is their K car category? They have minivans, they have SUVs, they have sports cars. So those are very unique to that market.
Right.
And therefore drives a certain proportion. I always say, designing a compact sedan for India in sub 4 meters with 4 adults, with an engine in front and having a boot is kind of a magical challenge. It's like, when I used to speak to some of my design colleagues from other countries and other parts of the world, they could not understand how physically we got a sedan into 4 meters. And got the baggage space, knee room, headroom, all of that. So some very specific markets need a specific proportion, or are driven by legislation actually more than what a designer would do. But generally, by and large, in other market segments, it kind of. I am seeing, of course, with battery packs for range. Battery packs getting longer, so EVs are moving to sort of very long wheelbases, much longer than what you would see in ICE. So already EVs are 3 meters, over 3 meters wheelbase.
Right.
Which drives a very different proportion for the rest of the vehicle.
What do you enjoy designing more, ICE or EVs?
I just enjoy designing. So for me, I get as much joy designing a tractor as I would, doing a BEV or doing a, Vero. I had a great time with the team designing the Vero, which is a small commercial vehicle.
Right.
We are doing some tractors now. We're doing other things, So I think any design challenge is exciting, you know, and when you're doing something new, it's a process of creation that actually excites me, rather than, you know, what that object is. You know, the process is always energizing.
Are you a purist when it comes to designing? Does the fact that you have to leave like a big cavity for a sensor or a camera, does that bother you?
No, you integrate these things. I think it's all part of, you know, if someone said, you know, a human being has a nose, is that a problem? No, you know, you integrate it in a certain way. What I don't like personally doing is creating an illusion of something that's not there. So for example, if you look at the 9E, there is no front grille because there is no engine. You know, so of course I could have put a fake front grille, but I don't personally, that's not my philosophy of design. If something's there, it has to have a function. So I won't do, you know, fake grills, fake intakes, fake exhaust. You know, someone said in the 9E, shouldn't we put like these two exhausts? I'm like, you know, why would you do that? It's not a nice product.
Yeah.
It's an EV. The whole point is it's moved away from exhausts.
Right.
You know, so well, for me, it's important to stay true to the function.
Sure.
Yeah.
How much of car design is clinical and how much of it is pure soul?
I think it starts with pure soul, and then it's in the process becomes more, let's say, more left brain. So you start from the right brain, and it has to move to the left brain, because the car has to be made. It has to be made for a certain cost. It has to then be sold. It has to be sold for a certain cost. In that certain price. In that price, you have to make money for the company. From that, you have to invest in the future cars. You know, so it is a business. At the end of it, it is not a work of art. And a lot of people ask me, you know, what's the difference between art and design? I think that's the fundamental difference. Design is something is designed to be made and to be sold to someone, whereas art, you don't necessarily need to sell it to anyone if you want. I could do art as a pure individual pursuit, right? The moment it's for a client, it starts becoming design. An artist is commissioned to do a painting of a certain type for a certain place, your house, you know, exhibition or a venue. That already moves towards design. You're using artistic skills, but you're painting something, or you're creating a sculpture which has a meaning and a message and an outcome. You know, the mudras in the Delhi airport, that is created through a very artistic process, but it has a very clear design communication function. You know, so I would see that as a piece of design, actually. And in fact, one of my friends designed that.
Oh, lovely.
So for me, you know, it's very important that it starts as an artistic pursuit, design of an automobile, but has to become something you can produce for a certain price and then sell at a certain profit.
A lot of people look at car designers' roles in companies as solely that of a designer, but you know, there are so many other areas around, like, you know, for instance, designing car showrooms, or you know, even the displays at the expos, or even the website for the brand. You know, can you throw a little light on, you know, what all it entails?
My own role, for example, is wherever the brand is expressed, I will have a view. Sometimes it's a responsibility direct, but other times it's a view as well. So for example, we've redesigned all our showrooms, you know, with the launch of these new BEVs. We've refreshed all our showrooms. I had a very direct input there. Brand, logo, you know, colors, all of that. You're right, you know, exhibitions. I also mentioned just now, you know, the way we shoot our cars, the way they're filmed.
Right.
So I personally went, you know, when we shot the campaign for the BEVs, I was personally present on the set. Because again, it's, you know, how the car looks, how it feels, how it's portrayed. You know, you spoke about disasters earlier. One bad shot can actually, you know, ruin the campaign.
Right.
I went through probably 15,000 photographs to choose the 6 or 7 we finally used.
Wow.
At least 15,000.
Wow.
Sifted through those, briefing the photographer, briefing the way, you know, something is portrayed. That's now the role of a designer, especially at a senior level. It becomes about this brand integrity, rather than just doing a product and then handing it over to someone and then that's gone,
Right.
So communication of the brand, you become almost like a brand custodian in a way.
Right.
So that's the role. Yeah.
How often do you go to the headquarters of Pininfarina?
And
what are your takeaways?
I go to Pininfarina probably 2 or 3 times a year, of course. Takeaway, I mean, it's in Turin, first of all, which is, one of the centers of automotive design. There's so much history there, so much automotive culture. So it's always refreshing. Italy also has its own, unique culture of life, a way of being. And that reflects very directly in how they design things and what the outcome is. There's no fear in using form or color. You'll see colors that you don't see anywhere else.
True.
I mean, people will be wearing red glasses, green shoes, but it's all put together beautifully.
Right.
It's not casual in that sense. It's actually curated, but it's very bold. And yeah, Pininfarina is almost 90, 95 years old. They have a deep tradition in sort of car design. So it's always nice to be there. Their museum is one of the best, I think, in the world, because you see incredible stuff there. So you respect it for its heritage, its ability, and they've kept it going for so many years. Many other car design companies have come and gone, but Pininfarina is very much still there.
You work with so many OEMs and in so many different continents at that. How does Mahindra stand out? What, according to you, do they do differently from the others?
I think Mahindra, we are very bold. That's one thing. We're not held. We have a lot of respect for where we come from and our heritage and legacy, but it never is a weight on us. If we want to move in a certain direction, the company moves fast. I mean, we almost didn't have an EV play, till recently, and what a bold step to take, to invest that kind of not only money but that kind of energy, effort, time, people to create this whole new generation of EVs is something I think very bold, and it's connected to Rachna, more than where we want to be as a company. I think Mahindra, the great thing is Mahindra sees itself as a part of where India wants to be as a country. So it's not disconnected from the ambition of where the country wants to be, and we are very proud of that. That association that we have, because when we see the cars, or when people see our cars on the road, they say, "Is it from an Indian company?" Why not? It makes us really proud that it's from India.
Right.
The same things when we sometimes show overseas. We show them in some exhibitions. People are stunned that they're from India, and it says a lot about us.
Right.
So I think that's the difference, that I find, we are much more part of a national ambition than many other OEMs.
I noticed you recently were reading a book on Chris Bangle. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, Chris Bangle is a legend in our business. Ever since he did that seminal, sort of 7 series and 5 series in the early 2000, and some of the work he's done before, of course, at Fiat, etc. And then what he did at BMW. I mean, there's no. You can probably count Chris Bangle in the fingers of one hand of design legends in automotive, especially. But he is deeply informed about how automotive design is a part of and influences social culture, and I think that relationship many designers don't really think about. They end at a product being a product, but I think he sees it as something that is shaped by society, but also shapes society. So that relationship he has been able to put down in a book, even if it's very visual, as most designers are. In 100 very simple chapters, and I'm going through that. It's all in Italian currently, so but it's a great read.
How does Pratap Bose unwind? Also, is it also a really good thing to turn your passion into a profession? Because then, how do you unwind?
Yeah, I unwind, by reading, music, cooking, and I love watching Korean TV series. They're very violent in many cases, and Korea is not like that. I've been to Seoul many times. I haven't really seen any signs of violence, but the series are crazy. But they're so amazing. So I watch those when I do get some time to watch it back to back. I love cooking. Cooking, I think, is very much like design. You have ingredients, you have a process, you put it all together, the timing has to be right, and then you get a result, right? Which has to be tasty, hopefully. So cooking and design for me are very similar. In fact, many of the chefs actually think they are designers in a way. They really curate the ingredients. So for me, it's the what elements we have. They curate who helps them in the kitchen. This is the team here. And the timing, how much ingredient you put. Too much salt is too much. So too many lines is too much on a car. And then it goes out into the restaurant for someone to buy and eat and enjoy. And it's the same for us. So cooking for me is basically like car design.
Superb. Thank you so much for this fabulous interview.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you giving us so much time and taking so much time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pleasure.